All right, let's talk about something that a lot of Australians are curious about, using your super to buy property. It's a really powerful strategy, but it's also incredibly complex. We're going to break down exactly how it works.
So, just how popular is this? Well, check out this number, $63 billion. That's the total value of assets that self-managed super funds are holding right now under these special borrowing rules. It's a huge figure, which shows you just how many people are doing this.
So, the big question is, how is this even possible? How can you borrow money inside your super fund? What's the real appeal? And maybe most importantly, what are the critical risks and the absolute non-negotiable rules you have to know before you even think about it? Let's dive in. Okay, to really get our heads around this, we have to start with a fundamental rule of superannuation. And then we'll look at the one very specific exception that makes this whole thing possible. Yep, you heard that right. As a general rule, super funds are flat out banned from borrowing money. The Australian Taxation Office is crystal clear on this. You can't just rock up to a bank and get a loan for your super fund. But there's a loophole. A single, very structured loophole that opens the door. And this is the magic key that unlocks the whole thing. It's called a limited recourse borrowing arrangement, or LRBA for short. Now, the crucial part is in the name, limited recourse. It means if the fund can't pay back the loan, the lender can only go after the one asset they lent you the money for, in this case, the property. All your other super assets are safe behind a firewall. So how do they actually create that firewall? Well, the legal plumbing here is pretty clever. Your super fund doesn't actually hold the title to the property while the loan is active. Instead, a separate legal structure called a bare trust is set up. Think of it as a holding pen. It holds the property on behalf of your super fund until the loan is totally paid off. That's what creates the legal separation and protection. So you're probably thinking, wow, that sounds like a lot of legal and financial hassle. And you're right. So why on earth would anyone bother going through all of this? Well, the answer comes down to a really powerful idea that opens up a whole new world for investors. Here's the core of it. When you borrow personally, a lender looks at your salary, your personal debts. Your borrowing power is limited by that. But when your SMSF borrows, the lender looks at the fund's income. That's your employer contributions plus any rent the property will generate. It's like having a second, totally separate bucket of borrowing capacity. And this quote from an industry expert really nails the motivation. For a lot of people, this isn't their first investment property. It's for people who've already maxed out their personal borrowing limits. They see their super as another lever they can pull to keep growing their asset base. Okay, we've covered the why. Now we've got to talk about the most important part of this whole explainer, the rules and the risks. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that getting this wrong can absolutely wreck your retirement savings. It all comes down to something the ATO calls the sole purpose test, and the name says it all. Every single thing you do with this property must be for the sole purpose of providing for your retirement. That means no funny business. You can't buy the house from your cousin, you can't stay there on weekends, you can't rent it to your kids. These are bright, flashing, red lines you just can't cross. And look, this ATO case study just lays it all out there. It's a tale of two investors. First, you've got Kelly. She rushed in, didn't get the right advice, broke the rules, and it was a catastrophe. She was forced to sell the property at a loss, got hit with personal fines, and her super fund lost almost half its value. Then you have Bob. He got a team of experts, followed every rule, and his retirement savings grew just like he planned. The stakes are just that high. And it's not just about the big setup rules. You've got to think about the practical ongoing risks. For one, these SMSF loans are usually more expensive. They have higher rates and fees than a normal home loan. Your fund also needs a constant stream of cash to cover the mortgage, council rates, repairs, especially if you can't find a tenant for a while. Plus, it's inflexible. You can't just decide to knock down a wall or add a deck. Any big changes are off limits until the loan is fully paid off. And hey, here is a little fun fact for you. Back in the 1600s, the word superannuated literally meant to be declared obsolete or just too old, kind of like being put out to pasture. It's pretty funny how we've completely flipped that to mean planning for our best years ahead. Getting through all the rules to set the loan up correctly is really only half the battle. So let's talk about managing that loan over the long term. And a huge, and I mean huge, opportunity for savings that a lot of people just miss. So when a lender is deciding if your fund can actually afford the loan, they have this kind of two-step check. First, they look above the line. They add up the fund's own income, so that's your compulsory super contributions plus the rent, and see if that covers the loan payments. If it does, great. If it doesn't, they'll then look below the line to see if you personally have enough income to make extra contributions to make up the difference.
But here's a common trap that an industry expert pointed out. People put in all this blood, sweat, and tears to get the loan set up, and then they just set it and forget it. They become totally passive. And as we're about to see, that passivity can cost you a fortune. So how much can that set and forget attitude cost you? Well, check this out. This number is a real-world example of the savings an SMSF trustee made just by actively managing their loan. They had a $500,000 loan with a high interest rate, and by refinancing to a better deal, they saved their retirement fund $20,000 every single year.
Okay, we've gone through how it works, why people do it, and the critical rules and risks. That brings us to the final and most personal question. After all that, how do you figure out if this is actually the right path for you?
The single most important takeaway from this entire explainer is this. This is absolutely not a do-it-yourself project. Trying to do this alone is like watching a YouTube video and then trying to perform your own surgery. It's a terrible idea. You need a coordinated team of qualified professionals, a financial advisor, an accountant, a specialist mortgage broker, and a solicitor who all live and breathe this stuff.
So the bottom line is really simple. This is not a passive investment. It's not like just leaving your money in a regular super fund and letting someone else handle it. This is a hands-on, active strategy. You are taking on the role of a fund manager, a borrower, and a landlord all at the same time. And that really is the ultimate question you have to answer for yourself. Yes, it offers control and the power of leverage, but it demands expertise, diligence, and a lot of your time. Is taking on all those roles, the banker, the landlord, the fund manager, the right path for your retirement? Thank you for joining me for this explainer.